the cold winds of the Mongolian steppe, a child was born. A child who would one day shake the foundations of the earth. His name was Temujin, the boy who would become Genghis Khan. His story did not begin in palaces or among riches. It began in hunger, in betrayal, and in pain. His father poisoned, his family abandoned, his tribe refusing to protect them in the lonely plains. Young Temujin learned one truth, that no one would save him, that strength was the only law of the world. As he grew, he carried that truth in his heart. His mother taught him to survive on wild routes, on frozen rivers, on courage. He hunted to live, fought to defend, and dreamed of a day when no man would ever abandon him again. Each night he would stare into the endless sky, whispering to the stars that one day they would remember his name. Years passed. Temujin learned the art of unity in a land divided by tribes, where betrayal was as common as the rising sun. He began to gather allies, not through fear, but through loyalty. He believed that every man deserved a chance, that the poor could fight beside the noble, that the strong should protect the weak, and that loyalty was stronger than blood. But unity comes with enemies. Rival tribes feared him. They called him dangerous, a dreamer, a rebel. Soon the Taishiat captured him. They tied him with wooden locks, dragging him like an animal. But even as a prisoner, he smiled, because he knew chains could not hold destiny. One night he broke free, escaping into the night, hiding among the grass and rivers, his heart burning with vengeance and purpose. Temujin returned, not as a boy, but as a leader. He began to build his own army. Men from every tribe, broken men, outcasts, dreamers, warriors. He created a brotherhood bound not by blood but by purpose, the Mongols, and he gave them a vision. One step, one people, one destiny. Under one sky, in every battle, he led from the front, his arrows finding their mark, his words igniting fire in the hearts of his soldiers. His enemies began to whisper his name with fear and awe. The steppe trembled beneath the hooves of his horses. And for the first time in centuries, the tribes began to unite. Temujin had become Genghis Khan, the universal ruler, but his eyes were not fixed on Mongolia alone. Beyond the mountains lay empires, rich cities, silk roads, and kingdoms that laughed at the name of the steppe. Genghis Khan looked at him and saw not walls, but challenges, not peace, but opportunity. And so began the greatest conquest the world had ever seen. The wind over the Mongolian plains carried a new sound, the thunder of thousands of hooves, the clash of steel, and the roar of warriors who had never known defeat. At their head rode Genghis Khan, his eyes sharp as the hawk, his armor glinting beneath the rising sun, his dream now alive, his army united, his destiny unfolding with every heartbeat. He began his conquest with the neighboring tribes, those who had mocked him, those who had betrayed him. One by one they fell, not just to his power, but to his strategy. Genghis Khan was not a brute. He was a thinker, a master of psychology. He knew when to strike and when to wait. He studied his enemies. He used fear as a weapon, mercy as a tool, and discipline as his greatest strength. He trained his men like no army before them. They rode faster, fought harder, lived tougher. Every soldier could read the sky, track the wind, and survive with nothing but his horse and bow. He created a system where even the lowest warrior could rise through skill and loyalty, not birth. His army was not a mob. It was a machine of precision, a brotherhood of equals bound by honor. When he turned his eyes west, the great empire of the Jin dynasty stood in his path, its cities rich, its walls high, its people proud. But pride means little before the storm. Genghis Khan unleashed the Mongol horde upon them. His horsemen moved like shadows, striking where least expected, disappearing into dust before the enemy could strike back. The Jin armies outnumbered the Mongols, but they could not match their speed. Genghis Khan taught his men to fight like ghosts, to split and surround, to lure and destroy. His enemies called it chaos, but it was perfect order disguised as madness. His soldiers carried no fear, for they believed their Khan was chosen by the eternal blue sky itself. City after city fell, the The walls crumbled, the great fortresses turned to ash. Yet Genghis Khan was not driven by cruelty alone. He wanted obedience, not extinction. Those who resisted were crushed, but those who submitted were spared. He absorbed their knowledge, their craftsmen, their engineers, their scholars, building an empire not just of warriors, but of ideas. As he conquered, he built. He opened the Silk Road, connecting east and west. He created laws known as yasa, uniting his empire under justice and discipline. Merchants traveled safely across thousands of miles, from China to Persia, carrying silk, spices, and stories of the man who ruled the world from the saddle. But the steppe was never silent. Rebellion rose, and betrayal lurked like a shadow. The Khwarezm Empire in the west made a fatal mistake. Their ruler killed Genghis Khan's trade envoys, an insult no Mongol could forgive. And thus began one of the most devastating campaigns in human history. Genghis Khan marched across deserts and mountains, his army facing storms and starvation, yet his will never broke. He swore revenge not in anger, but in purpose. He believed every insult to his people was an insult to the heavens, and heaven demanded justice. His banners stretched from horizon to horizon. His messengers carried the symbol of eternal power. 2 arrows crossed beneath the blue sky. The cities of Khwarezm fell one by one. Otrar burned, Bukhara surrendered. Samarkand was taken, and Genghis Khan stood before his captives and said, "If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." His words carried across centuries, a reminder that his wrath was not random, but divine. By now, the world trembled at his name. His enemies called him a monster. His followers called him father. His people called him the chosen one, in the deserts of Central Asia and the plains of China. In the mountains of Persia and the steppes of Russia, the Mongol banners fluttered, and the sound of their horses became the heartbeat of the earth. But even as his empire expanded beyond imagination, Genghis Khan knew that conquest was not the end. It was only the beginning, because ruling the world required more than victory. It required vision. It required a legacy that would outlive him. The world had never seen a force like the Mongols. They moved faster than thought, struck harder than thunder, and vanished before the dust had even settled. At their heart rode one man, Genghis Khan, no longer just a conqueror, but a living legend. His name carried by the wind from the deserts of Arabia to the snow of Siberia, from the gates of China to the walls of Europe. Wherever his shadow fell, kings trembled and empires bowed. Yet in his heart, Genghis Khan remained the boy from the steppe, the boy who once hunted for food and dreamed beneath an endless sky. He never built palaces. He never wore a crown of gold. His throne was the saddle. His court was the earth itself. He slept beneath the stars, believing that greatness did not come from comfort, but from purpose. He taught his sons and generals that victory meant nothing without unity, that the strength of the empire lay not in fear, but in loyalty. Every Mongol soldier, from the youngest archer to the oldest commander, could ride for days without food, could cross rivers in silence, could fight to the last breath. For they were not fighting for themselves. They were fighting for a dream, the dream of one world under one sky. Genghis Khan ruled through wisdom as much as war. He created a postal system that carried messages across thousands of miles in record time. He valued merit over blood, promoting men for skill, not birthright. He granted freedom of religion, allowing Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, and others to worship freely. At a time when most of the world still burned in the name of faith, he understood that diversity was not a weakness, but a strength in battle. His mind was sharper than his sword. He used spies to spread fear and confusion. He created fake retreats to lure enemies into traps. His strategies are still studied by generals centuries later. From Napoleon to modern military schools, his discipline turned chaos into control, and his courage turned men into legends. But time spares no king, no conqueror, no hero. As the years passed, his hair turned white. His body carried the scars of 1,000 battles. Yet his spirit burned brighter than ever. He had united a world that had never been united. He had created the largest empire in human history. stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea. He had done the impossible, and yet he remained humble, reminding his sons that the steppe had made him, and to the steppe he would return in his final days. He called his generals, his family, his sons, and spoke with calm strength. He told them that empires rise and fall, that power fades like smoke, but legacy lives in the hearts of those who believe. He urged them to remain united, to continue building, to carry the flame of the Mongols beyond his death, and to never forget that the greatest conquest is not of land. When Genghis Khan died, the world fell silent. No one knew where he was buried, for his grave was kept secret, hidden somewhere in the vast Mongolian plains. His soldiers buried him with honor and swore that no enemy would ever find him. They rode around his grave until the tracks disappeared into the wind, leaving nothing but the memory of a man who had once ruled the earth. Even after death, his empire continued to grow. His sons and grandsons carried his legacy to new horizons. They conquered China, Persia, and Eastern Europe. They built cities, opened trade routes, and connected civilizations that had never spoken before. His vision had become reality. The Silk Road thrived. Ideas and inventions flowed freely. And the Mongol peace, known as the Pax Mongolica, brought order to chaos. And though centuries have passed, the spirit of Genghis Khan still rides the wind and the songs of the steppe. In the stories of warriors, in the echoes of history, his name remains carved not in stone, but in time itself. He was more than a conqueror. He was a force of nature, a symbol of human will, a reminder that, from the smallest beginnings, can rise the greatest of empires. His enemies called him destruction, but his followers called him destiny. And perhaps both were right, for Genghis Khan was not just a man. He was the storm that reshaped the world, the dream that refused to die, the whisper that still lingers beneath the endless blue sky, reminding us all that power fades, but legacy never does.